The alien woman named Zara watched the human settlement from the edge of the forest. Her violet skin shimmered under the twin moons of planet Nexus. She had been observing the humans for 3 cycles, now learning their habits and customs. The cool, night air brushed against her tall, slender form as she crouched behind the large ferns that grew abundantly on this world. Zara belonged to the Lirani species known across the galaxy for their intelligence and psychic abilities. Her people lived in harmony with nature, using their advanced technology only when necessary. The humans who arrived on her planet 2 years ago seemed different. They built metal structures and changed the landscape without considering how it might affect the delicate balance of life. Her large eyes with vertical pupils like a cat allowed her to see clearly in the darkness. She watched as a human female walked alone from one building to another. The woman had light-colored hair that reminded Zara of the sacred crystals in her underground home. This human seemed different from the others. She often stayed late working in the building with many strange machines while others rested. Susan Taylor wiped her tired eyes and looked at the clock on the wall of her laboratory. It was well past midnight again, but she felt close to a breakthrough. The plants on Nexus contained compounds unlike anything found on Earth. If she could understand how they worked, she might discover new medicines that could help millions back home. As head scientist of the expedition, Susan took her responsibility seriously. She had fought hard for this position, proving herself against others who thought a woman couldn't lead such an important mission. Now, 2 years into their settlement on Nexus, she felt the pressure to show results. The supply ship would return in 6 months and she needed something significant to report. Susan packed her samples carefully in the cooling unit. She would continue tomorrow after some rest. As she turned off the lights and locked the laboratory door, she felt a strange sensation like someone was watching her. She looked around the darkened compound but saw nothing unusual. Must be exhaustion playing tricks on my mind, she thought as she walked to her small living quarters. Zara moved silently through the forest following the human woman. She was curious about this creature who worked with plants. Perhaps she understood the importance of nature. The council would want to know. About her, Zara had been chosen as scout because of her exceptional telepathic abilities. She could sense emotions and sometimes even thoughts from a distance. The human woman radiated intelligence and determination qualities the Lirani respected for. 3 more nights Zara observed the settlement, learning their patterns. The humans had technology that seemed primitive compared to Lirani achievements, yet they built and expanded quickly. They seemed to have no awareness that another intelligent species lived on this planet. The Lirani had deliberately chosen to remain hidden, watching from their vast underground crystal cities. On the 4th night, something changed. The human woman stayed even later than usual. Zara moved closer to the building. With many windows, she could see the woman bent over a device that made things appear larger. Zara felt drawn to her, unable to explain why. Perhaps it was simple curiosity or something deeper, a sense that this human might understand. Susan felt the strange sensation again, stronger this time. She looked up from her microscope and saw a tall, slender figure standing in the doorway. Her heart raced as she stared at what could only be an alien. The being had violet skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. With an inner light, long silver hair floated around its head as if underwater. The face was humanoid, but with striking differences. No nose, just small breathing slits above the mouth. Eyes twice the size of human eyes with vertical pupils. And the height Susan guessed the being stood at least 7 feet tall. Susan remained frozen, unsure if she should run or stay. She glanced at the communication device on her desk. If she called for help, the security team would arrive within minutes. But something told her that would be a mistake. This being had entered without setting off any alarms. It could have harmed her already if that was its intention. Zara stepped forward, raising her 6-fingered hand in a greeting gesture she had not planned to reveal herself. But something about this human pulled her forward. She sent gentle telepathic waves, trying to communicate without frightening the woman. "I mean no harm," came the thought in Susan's mind. She gasped, realizing the alien was speaking directly into her thoughts. The voice felt feminine somehow. "You can understand me." Susan thought back, focusing her mind as if sending a message. "Yes," Zara responded. The human woman seemed surprised but not afraid, which impressed Zara. Most species reacted with terror when first encountering the Lirani. Susan had always believed aliens existed, but meeting one face-to-face still shocked her. "Why have you been watching us?" she asked. Finding her voice at last, Zara hesitated, then decided honesty would serve. "Best, my people have lived on this planet for thousands of years. We feared your kind would destroy our home without knowing we existed." Susan felt a mix of emotions, excitement at first contact, guilt that humans had settled without permission, wonder at the being before her. "Where do you live?" she asked. "We scanned the planet before landing and found no signs of civilization. We live underground in vast cities built from crystal," Zara explained. "Our technology masks energy signatures. Your scanners would not detect us." Susan considered this information. It changed everything about their mission. They were not alone on Nexus. The scientific implications were enormous, not to mention the diplomatic challenges. "Would you sit?" she asked, gesturing to a chair, trying to act normally in a situation that was anything but normal. Zara moved gracefully across the room. Her movements seemed almost liquid, as if her joints worked differently from human ones. She sat carefully on the offered chair, which creaked slightly under her tall frame. "My name is Susan Taylor," she said, placing her hand on her chest. "I am a scientist, studying the plants of your world." She paused, then added, "What should I call you, in your language?" "My name would be Zara," the alien woman replied. She studied the human with equal curiosity, noting the 5 fingers, the small eyes, the strange clothing. Her people had legends about beings from beyond the stars, but this was her first actual encounter. Susan noticed that despite the physical differences, there was something recognizably female about Zara. Perhaps it was her movements or the gentle quality of her telepathic voice. "How many of your people live here?" she asked. "Thousands," Zara answered. "We have 3 main cities beneath, the surface connected by transport tunnels. Our oldest city lies beneath the mountain range you call the Northern Peaks." The 2 women talked until morning. Susan learned that the Lirani could live for hundreds of years and possessed healing powers. They cultivated special crystals that provided energy and enhanced their natural abilities. Zara discovered that humans had complex emotions and created art for pleasure, not just function. She was especially intrigued by music, something the Lirani had never developed. As dawn approached, Zara stood to leave. "The first sun will rise soon. I must return to my people. They will be concerned." "Will you come back?" Susan asked suddenly. Not wanting this extraordinary encounter to end, Zara considered the request. Such a meeting went against council rules, but she felt it important to learn more about these humans. "Tomorrow night," she decided, "I will return after your people sleep." Susan watched the alien woman disappear into the forest, moving with impossible speed. Her world had forever changed in one night. First contact with an alien species, and it had happened in her laboratory. She wondered if she should tell the others, but something held her back. Commander Lisa Wells, who led security, would likely see the Lirani as a threat. She decided to wait, learn more before making the encounter official. That day, Susan moved through her tasks in a daze. Her assistant, Olivia Brown, noticed her distraction. "Everything okay?" Olivia asked as they catalogued. "Plant samples, just tired," Susan replied. Unable to keep her excitement completely hidden, she added, "Do you think there could be intelligent life on this planet we've missed somehow?" Olivia laughed. "We scanned everything before landing. Remember those weeks of surveys? Nothing showed up, but I suppose anything is possible." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," Susan said, changing the subject. She counted the hours until nightfall, wondering if Zara would truly return in her underground home. Zara faced the council. 5 elderly Lirani sat in a semicircle, their skin paler violet than the younger members of their species. They wore simple robes adorned with crystal fragments that glowed softly in the dim light. "You revealed yourself to a human," the lead council member stated, her tone neutral but her mind projecting disappointment. "That was not your assignment. I judged it necessary." Zara responded, standing tall before them. This human is different. She studies the plants, respects nature. She could help us understand their intentions. The council members exchanged glances, communicating silently through their telepathic bond. Finally, the leader spoke again. You will continue to meet with this human. Learn their plans for our world. But be cautious. Zara, if they discover our cities, everything we have built could be threatened. Zara bowed, accepting the assignment with mixed feelings. She had told the council the logical reasons for contacting Susan. But deep inside she recognized another truth. She felt drawn to the human woman in ways she could not explain. It was as if their meeting had been destined, somehow written in the stars that shone above the world they both called home. Over the next few weeks, Zara visited Susan regularly. Their meetings became the highlight of both their lives. Each woman fascinated by the other, each representing an entire species, yet forming a connection that transcended their differences. Susan kept these meetings secret, knowing how some people in the settlement might react to aliens, especially Commander Lisa Wells, who saw everything non-human as a potential threat. The commander had made it clear in staff meetings that the security of the settlement came before scientific discovery. On this night, Susan waited in her laboratory, heart beating quickly whenever she heard a sound outside. Zara usually arrived exactly at midnight, but it was now 20 minutes past the hour. Susan worried. Something had happened to her alien friend. A soft tapping at the window made Susan jump. She hurried over and saw Zara crouched outside. She quickly opened the window and the tall alien woman slipped through with surprising grace despite her height. Apologize for my lateness, Zara communicated telepathically. There are patrols near the forest edge tonight. I had to take a longer path. Susan nodded, understanding the need for caution. She had prepared tea, something Zara had grown to enjoy. The alien woman held the warm cup in her six-fingered hands, taking small sips through her lipless mouth. I brought something to show you, Susan said excitedly. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small device. When she pressed a button, soft music filled the room. It was a recording of classical piano music from Earth. Zara sat perfectly still, her large eyes widening as the sounds washed over her. The Lirani had no equivalent to music. Their art forms focused on light and movement, not sound. The complex patterns of notes created sensations in her mind she had never experienced before. It is beautiful, she finally said after the piece ended. What do you call this? It's Bach, Susan explained, a composer from Earth who lived hundreds of years ago. The instrument is called a piano. Zara closed her eyes. Can you play it again? Susan smiled and restarted the recording, watching her friend's face as she experienced music for the second time. The pure joy and wonder on Zara's alien features made Susan feel as though she was hearing Bach for the first time too. After the music ended, they talked about their different worlds. Susan described Earth with its oceans and varied landscapes, its crowded cities and remote wilderness. Zara told stories of the crystal caves deep beneath Nexus, where the Lirani young were taught to focus their telepathic abilities. The Lirani Council has been discussing your settlement, Zara said, her tone growing serious. They fear your people will expand and eventually discover our cities. Susan frowned. We have no plans to expand beyond the current boundaries, and if we knew there was an intelligent species here, we would respect your territory. But not all humans think as you do, Zara said gently. I have observed your Commander Wells. She carries weapons even within your settlement and watches the forest with suspicion. Susan couldn't deny this. Lisa was cautious to the point of paranoia, always expecting threats. She had military training before joining the scientific expedition and still thought like a soldier. Maybe I should tell our leader about you. Susan suggested the whole settlement doesn't need to know yet, but Diane Porter is reasonable. She would understand the importance of peaceful contact. Zara considered this suggestion. The council would not approve, but perhaps it was time for official recognition between their peoples. Before she could respond, both women heard footsteps outside the laboratory. Quick hide, Susan whispered, pointing to a storage closet. Zara moved silently across the room and disappeared inside just as a knock came at the door. Susan smoothed her hair and tried to look normal as she opened the door. Commander Lisa Wells stood in the hallway, her uniform crisp, despite the late hour working late. Again, Dr. Taylor, she said, her eyes scanning the laboratory. I saw lights on. Yes, just finishing some analysis. Susan replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Can I help you with something? The commander stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. We've picked up some unusual energy readings in this area over the past few weeks, always centered around your lab, always at night. Susan felt her heart race, but kept her expression neutral. Probably my equipment. The mass spectrometer uses a lot of power, perhaps, Lisa said, walking slowly around the laboratory. But the pattern is odd. The readings spike and then disappear completely. She paused by the desk, picking up the cup Zara had been using. 2 cups, she noted. Why? Would you need 2? I was making a fresh one, Susan improvised, forgot I already had one. She laughed, trying to sound natural. The first one got cold. Lisa didn't smile. Her hand moved to the weapon at her hip. Something else strange. The security cameras around the perimeter have been malfunctioning, near the forest edge. Always on different nights, but always creating a blind spot. Susan said nothing, unsure how to respond without raising more suspicion. The commander continued. Is there anything you want to tell me, Doctor? Anything unusual you've encountered in your research? Susan thought of Zara hiding just feet away, of the amazing friendship they had formed, of the potential for peaceful contact between their species. But she also thought of Lisa's suspicious nature, her readiness to see threats rather than opportunities. She made a split-second decision. Nothing unusual. Commander, just the regular studies of plant compounds. I'm documenting in my reports. Lisa looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to read the truth in her face. Finally, she nodded. Well, don't stay too late. The morning briefing is at 800. She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. One more thing, Dr. Taylor. If there was something happening here, something important, to the settlement, you would report it, wouldn't you? It's protocol after all, of course. Susan assured her, trying to look confident as the commander finally left. She waited, listening to the footsteps fade down the hallway before opening the closet door. Zara emerged, her violet skin paler than usual. She was shaking slightly, that human suspect, something she communicated. Her thoughts were loud and suspicious. I could feel them pushing against my mind. Susan grabbed Zara's hands without thinking. The alien woman's skin felt cool and slightly textured like fine leather. We're going to need to be more careful, she said. Meeting here isn't safe anymore. Lisa has obviously noticed something. Where can we meet? Zara asked. Susan thought for a moment. There are caves, about 2 miles south of the settlement. We use them sometimes to store equipment, but no one goes there at night. Would your people allow that? The caves connect to some of our smaller tunnels. Zara confirmed. We could meet there with less risk of discovery. They made plans to meet the following night. Susan would make an excuse to check equipment stored in the caves, while Zara would approach from below through the Lyrani tunnels. As they said goodbye, Susan felt a growing sense of unease. The commander was watching her now. Their secret meetings had just become much more dangerous. The next day passed slowly for Susan. Every time she saw Lisa in the settlement, she wondered if the commander knew more than she let on. She tried to act normally, attending meetings, working in the greenhouse, helping Olivia catalog new specimens. That evening, she told Diane Porter she needed to check the backup generator in the southern caves. The settlement leader, a practical woman in her 50s, merely nodded and reminded Susan to take a communication device. Susan set out just before sunset, carrying a small pack with tools she wouldn't need and food to share with Zara. The path to the caves took her along the edge of the forest, then across a small meadow, filled with the strange blue flowers native to Nexus. The twin moons were rising as she reached the cave entrance. Inside the cave was cool and damp. Susan switched on her flashlight, illuminating the rough stone walls. The generator sat silent against one wall, surrounded by containers of supplies. She moved deeper into the cave beyond the settlement equipment to where the passage narrowed. The beam of her light disappeared into darkness as the cave continued downward. Zara. Susan called softly, Is anyone there? A faint blue glow appeared in the darkness, growing stronger as Zara approached. The alien woman carried a small crystal that emitted light. She looked different tonight, wearing what appeared to be ceremonial clothing. A simple robe covered her tall frame adorned with glowing crystal fragments. "You look beautiful," Susan said without thinking. Then felt embarrassed. Zara made a sound like gentle wind chimes, her species equivalent of laughter. "I am dressed formally. The council wishes to meet you." Susan felt a surge of both excitement and fear. "The Lirani Council wants to see me." "Now they have been watching our friendship," Zara explained. "They believe you might help bridge understanding between our peoples. Will you come? The main city is not far through these passages." Susan hesitated. She had told no one where she was really going. If she disappeared, the settlement would search for her. But this opportunity was too important to miss. She nodded. Yes. Ilkham Zara led the way, deeper into the cave. The passage sloped downward, becoming smoother as they progressed. Susan realized they had left the natural cave and entered a tunnel clearly shaped by intelligent hands. The walls were polished stone inlaid with the same crystals that adorned Zara's clothing, providing soft illumination. They walked for nearly an hour, going ever deeper beneath the surface. Finally, the tunnel widened, opening into a vast cavern. Susan gasped at the sight before her. Susan Taylor, human scientist and first contact with the Lirani people, stood before the alien council. She felt the weight of the moment, understanding that her words and actions might shape the future relationship between their species. The eldest council member, a female with pale violet skin and elaborate silver hair that seemed to float in a personal breeze, spoke first, her words appearing directly in Susan's mind. "I am Elder Vela," she communicated. "We have watched your kind since you arrived on our world. 2 years you have built and expanded, changing the surface without knowledge that others called this planet home." Susan swallowed, feeling suddenly defensive, yet understanding their perspective. "We had no idea intelligent life existed. Here our scans showed only simple animals and plant life." Another council member, male with deep violet markings on his face, leaned forward. "Your technology is primitive compared to ours. We have masked our presence for thousands of years, hiding from those who would exploit our world, and yet Zara chose to reveal herself to you," Elder Vela continued. "Why do you think that is?" Human Susan glanced at Zara, who stood silently beside her. "I can't speak for her, but I believe she saw that my work shows respect for this world. I study plants not to exploit them, but to understand them. Perhaps she sensed I would appreciate rather than fear difference." The council members exchanged looks, communicating silently in a way Susan couldn't perceive. Finally, Elder Vela spoke again. "It is unusual for a Lirani to form a connection with an off-worlder, yet Zara speaks highly of you. She believes you could help prevent conflict between our peoples. I want to help." Susan said honestly, "I believe our species could benefit from knowing each other. But I must be honest. Some humans will react with fear. Others might see your technology as something to acquire." She thought of Commander Lisa with her constant suspicion and readiness for conflict. "We have observed your military leader," the male council member said, confirming Susan's fears. "She patrols your perimeter with weapons, seeks threats where none exist." Susan nodded. "Commander Wells is cautious by nature. It's her job to protect our settlement. But our true leader, Diane Porter, is different. She values knowledge and cooperation. I believe she would welcome peaceful contact." The council deliberated silently again. The massive crystal behind them pulsed with changing colors, which Susan suspected reflected their emotions or perhaps amplified their telepathic communication. "We have existed in secret for millennia," Elder Vela finally said. "Revealing ourselves to your kind is not a decision to make lightly. Yet your presence on the surface grows. Your machines dig deeper. We cannot remain hidden forever. A choice lies before us," the male council member added, "either reveal ourselves on our terms or be discovered. Perhaps conflict would follow." Susan felt the enormous responsibility of this moment. "What do you propose?" she asked. "The council has decided Zara will continue to meet with you." Elder Vela announced, "You will learn of our ways, our history, our needs. You will share what you learn of us with your leader. Only when trust is established, perhaps formal, contact can begin." Relief washed over Susan. They were not demanding immediate withdrawal or threatening the settlement. They were offering a path toward peaceful coexistence. "Thank you," she said. "I will honor this trust." When the meeting ended, Zara escorted Susan back toward the surface tunnel. They walked in silence for some time, both processing the significance of what had happened. "You took a great risk bringing me here," Susan finally said. Zara nodded. "The council could have wiped your memory of our existence," she admitted. "Such technology is rarely used but available when needed." Susan stopped walking, shocked. "Do all Lyrani have this ability?" "Only our healers," Zara explained. "And only with council approval. We believe all experiences shape a person. Removing memories is considered deeply violating." They continued walking through the Crystal City. Lyrani stopped their activities to watch them pass, some bowing respectfully to Zara, others keeping their distance from the human stranger. Susan noticed young Lyrani children playing with what appeared to be small animated crystal figures. Their laughter came as musical chimes in her mind. "Your city is beautiful," Susan said. "I never imagined anything like this existed beneath the surface." "It has stood for 5,000 years, Zara said with pride. "The central crystal you saw in the council chamber was the first structure. Our ancestors built the city around it as they reached the edge of the city." Susan reluctantly prepared to return to the surface. "I should get back before someone notices him missing," she said. "If Lisa becomes suspicious, she might organize a search party." Zara nodded in understanding. "When can we meet again?" "Tomorrow night," Susan suggested. "Same place." "The cave seems safer than my lab." "Yes," Zara agreed, taking Susan's 5-fingered hand in her own 6-fingered one. "Until tomorrow, friend," Susan repeated, smiling at the word that somehow seemed inadequate for their unique relationship. The journey back to the surface took less time than the descent. Soon Susan emerged from the cave into the night air. The twin moons of Nexus hung low in the sky, providing enough light for her to find the path back to the settlement. Her mind raced with everything she had seen. The existence of the Lyrani would change everything about the mission on Nexus. But how and when to reveal this knowledge? As she approached the settlement perimeter, Susan saw flashlight beams sweeping the area. Her heart sank. Someone had noticed her extended absence. "Dr. Taylor," a voice called out. Susan recognized Commander Lisa Wells immediately. "Where have you been? The security system shows you left over 4 hours ago." "I was checking the equipment in the caves," Susan replied, sticking to her partial truth. "Then I decided to collect some night-blooming plant samples," she added, gesturing to her pack, which did contain a few hastily picked flowers. Lisa shone her flashlight directly at Susan's face, making her squint. "Protocol requires checking in if your fieldwork extends beyond the planned return time." "I'm sorry," Susan said, forcing an apologetic tone. "I lost track of time." The plant samples were particularly interesting. She held out a blue flower with luminescent pollen, hoping to distract the commander. With science, Lisa seemed unconvinced but lowered her flashlight. "Director Porter wants to see you first thing tomorrow morning. Briefing has been moved up to 0700. Susan nodded, trying not to show her concern. Had something happened? Something that might affect the fragile beginning of human-Lyrani relations. "He'll be there," she assured the commander, then headed to her quarters. Sleep came fitfully that night. Susan's dreams filled with crystal cities and violet-skinned beings. She woke before dawn, feeling anxious about the early meeting. What could be so urgent? The settlement's main building housed both research facilities and administration. A conference room on the second floor served for staff meetings. As Susan entered, she saw that everyone was already present. Diane Porter, the settlement director, sat at the head of the table. Her gray hair was pulled back in its usual practical bun, her expression serious. Commander Wells sat beside her, looking satisfied about something. Olivia Brown, Susan's research assistant, fidgeted nervously. The other department heads filled the remaining seats. "Please sit," Diane said, gesturing to the empty chair. We've received a transmission from Earth. The supply ship has been deployed earlier than scheduled. It will arrive in 3 weeks, not 6 as we expected. Susan felt her stomach tighten. 3 weeks. That changed everything. The fragile contact with the Lyrani needed more time to develop before outsiders arrived, especially since the supply ship would bring new personnel, including a military contingent, to relieve some of Commander Lisa's team. There's more. Diane continued. They're sending a special envoy, Dr. Catherine Morris from the Diplomatic Corps. Earth apparently has new protocols for potential first contact scenarios. The room erupted in murmurs of confusion. Susan sat frozen. How could Earth know about the Lyrani? She glanced at Lisa, who was watching her reaction carefully. Diane raised her hand for silence. It's standard procedure now for all extrasolar settlements. They're not suggesting we've found anything. The recent discovery of the Centauri civilization has changed policy. All settlements will have diplomatic representation going forward. Susan relaxed slightly, but remained concerned. 3 weeks wasn't much time. She needed to speak with Zara and the Council. They would view the arrival of more humans, especially military personnel, as a potential threat. Commander Wells has already begun preparations for the ship's arrival. Diane was saying, we'll need to expand the landing area and prepare quarters for 30 new personnel. 30. Susan repeated. The number seemed enormous compared to their current complement of 50. Yes. Diane confirmed. 20 scientific staff and 10 security. This brings me to my next point. She looked directly at Susan. The new personnel will need lab space, Dr. Taylor. I need you to consolidate your research areas. Make room in the main lab by moving your less critical projects to the secondary facility. Susan nodded automatically, her mind elsewhere. How would she explain all this to Zara tonight? The Lyrani had just begun to trust her. The news of more humans arriving would test that fragile trust. When the meeting ended, Susan hurried to catch up with Diane. Director Porter, a moment, please. The older woman stopped waiting as the others filed out. What is it? Susan, I was wondering. Susan began carefully. If we might delay some of the expansion preparations just until we complete the ecological survey of the southern region. She was thinking of the cave system and its proximity to the Lyrani city. Night had fallen by the time Susan left the director's office. The twin moons of Nexus cast their ghostly light across the settlement as she walked quickly to her quarters. She needed to gather a few things before meeting Zara at the caves. Her mind raced with the implications of her conversation with Diane. The director had taken the news better than expected. She hadn't ordered immediate military action or accused Susan of betraying human interests. Instead, she seemed to recognize the delicate nature of first contact and the importance of peaceful relations. But would the Lyrani see it that way? Susan packed a small bag with her tablet computer containing star charts of Earth and the surrounding systems, a small token she hoped might demonstrate goodwill by sharing knowledge. She added some Earth foods. Zara had expressed curiosity about chocolate and dried fruit. She also included a tiny music player, loaded with various compositions from Earth. Zara had been fascinated by human music. Slipping out of the settlement proved easier than expected. The night shift security team was focused on the eastern perimeter, where some native wildlife had been triggering sensors. Susan took the western path, staying in the shadows, until she reached the edge of the forest. From there, she followed the now familiar route to the caves. The cave entrance was dark, but Susan knew the way. She switched on her small flashlight and descended into the cool darkness. The equipment storage area stood silent and untouched. Moving deeper, she reached the meeting point where the natural cave connected to the Lyrani tunnels. Zara. Susan called softly, "Are you here?" A familiar blue glow appeared from the tunnel entrance, growing stronger as Zara approached. The tall alien woman emerged, her silver hair floating gently around her face. Her large eyes reflecting the light. Susan noticed immediately that something was wrong. Zara's normally serene expression was troubled. "What has happened?" Zara asked without preamble. "I sense great concern in your thoughts." Susan took a deep breath. "I told my director about you, about the Lyrani." She saw the alarm in Zara's eyes and quickly added, "She took it well, better than I expected. She wants peaceful contact." Zara moved, closer her height, forcing her to stoop slightly in the cave. "Why now? After weeks of secrecy?" Susan explained about the early arrival of the supply ship, the additional personnel, the special diplomatic envoy, the changes that would make continued secrecy impossible. "More humans," Zara said, her telepathic voice tinged with worry. "The Council will see this as a threat. Director Porter authorized me to tell you that she wants peaceful relations. Susan insisted. She offered to meet with your council when they're ready." Zara was silent for a moment, processing this information. "I must inform the Council immediately. These developments change everything." Susan reached out, touching Zara's arm gently. The violet skin felt cool and smooth beneath her fingers. "I brought something," she said, pulling out the tablet computer star charts showing Earth and our neighboring systems. "I thought sharing knowledge might help build trust." Zara accepted the tablet, her 6 fingers moving carefully across the screen as Susan showed her how to navigate the charts. The alien woman's expression softened slightly. "This is generous," she acknowledged. "Knowledge of your home system is valuable. The Council will appreciate this gesture." They sat together on the stone floor of the cave, Susan sharing the food she'd brought, watching with amusement as Zara experienced chocolate for the first time. The alien woman's vertical pupils dilated with pleasure at the taste. "This contains chemicals that affect your neural pathways," Zara observed after the second piece, but pleasantly so. "It's called theobromine," Susan explained with a smile. "Some humans are addicted to it." They spent an hour reviewing the star charts, Susan explaining Earth's location and the human expansion to nearby systems. Zara shared that the Lyrani had once possessed space travel technology, but had abandoned it thousands of years ago, choosing instead to focus inward, developing their mental abilities, and living in harmony with their chosen world. "I must return to the Council now," Zara said eventually. "The news of more humans arriving must be shared. The charts as well." She held up the tablet hesitantly. "This contains only information you wish to share." Susan nodded. "There are no hidden files, I promise." She paused, then asked, "Will you tell me what the Council decides, if I am permitted?" Zara promised, rising to her full height. She looked down at Susan for a long moment. Then in an unexpected gesture, she reached out and touched the human's face gently. "Be careful, my friend. The path between our worlds grows more complicated." Susan watched as Zara disappeared into the tunnel, the blue glow fading until darkness returned. She sat alone in the cave for several minutes, thinking about Zara's parting words. The alien woman was right. She now walked a dangerous line between loyalty to her own kind and her promise to the Lyrani, between scientific discovery and diplomatic caution, between her growing feelings for Zara and her duty to humanity. The return journey to the settlement gave Susan time to think about what she'd tell Diane, about how to navigate the coming weeks, about her own conflicted feelings. Eventually, she reached the perimeter fence and slipped back inside, unchallenged. Relief washed over her as she reached her quarters without incident. She fell into an exhausted sleep, filled with dreams of crystal cities and violet skin. Morning came too quickly. Susan woke to an urgent knocking at her door. She opened it to find Olivia looking concerned. "Where's your comm device?" Olivia asked. "Director Porter has been trying to reach you. There's a settlement-wide meeting in 20 minutes. Susan grabbed her communicator from the desk. Its battery had died. "It'll be right there," she said. "What's going on?" "No idea," Olivia replied. "But security teams are everywhere. Commander Wells has that look." Susan dressed quickly, dread building inside her. Had Diane revealed the existence of the Lyrani? Had something happened during the night? She hurried to the main building where the entire settlement staff was gathering in the large meeting hall. Commander Lisa Wells stood at the front, her security team positioned around the room. Each officer was armed, something unusual for a standard meeting. Susan scanned the crowd looking for Diane, but the director was nowhere to be seen. When everyone was seated, Lisa stepped forward. "I have an announcement," she began. "Last night, our perimeter sensors detected unusual energy readings, similar to those we've been tracking for weeks. A security team investigated and discovered evidence of an advanced technological civilization. Beneath the surface of Nexus, murmurs of shock and disbelief spread through the crowd. Susan sat frozen. How had they discovered this? Was it because of her meeting with Zara? Had they been followed? We have reason to believe Director Porter was aware of this discovery, but chose to withhold the information. Lisa continued. Her current whereabouts are unknown, but we believe she may have made unauthorized contact with these aliens. That's not true. Susan stood without thinking. Diane only learned about the Lirani yesterday. From me, all eyes turned to her. Lisa nodded as if confirming a suspicion. Dr. Taylor, perhaps you'd like to tell everyone how long you've been in contact with these aliens, and why you chose to keep this information from the settlement. Susan looked around at the shocked faces of her colleagues. She saw confusion, betrayal, fear. She took a deep breath. I made first contact with a Lirani scout several weeks ago, she admitted. They are a peaceful species who have lived beneath the surface for thousands of years. They masked their presence with technology beyond our understanding. I kept the contact secret, initially because I feared this exact reaction. Suspicion, fear, preparation for conflict. And what exactly did you share with these aliens? Commander Lisa demanded. Technology, settlement, defense information. Nothing like that, Susan insisted. I shared cultural information, basic science. My focus was on building trust between our species, which I did. I've been to one of their cities. They've shown no hostility, despite having technology far beyond ours. The crowd erupted in questions and exclamations. Lisa raised her hand for silence. Where is Director Porter? She asked directly. I don't know, Susan answered honestly. When I last saw her, she was in her office. She planned to prepare for diplomatic contact. Lisa turned to her security team. Pearson, Walker, continue the search. Focus on the cave system to the south. Her gaze returned to Susan. Dr. Taylor, you're confined to quarters until we determine the full extent of your actions. 2 security officers will escort you. This is wrong, Susan protested. These actions will be seen as hostile by the Lirani. They value peace, but they will defend themselves. The commander ignored her security personnel, moving to flank Susan. Olivia stood suddenly, placing herself between Susan and the guards. Wait, she said. This is insane. Susan isn't a traitor. She's a scientist doing what scientists do, discovering things. If there's an intelligent species on Nexus, we should be talking to them, not treating them as enemies. Others voiced agreement. The geologist Maria Conway spoke up. What evidence do you have that these aliens are hostile, Commander, or that Director Porter has been compromised? Lisa frowned. Unusual energy signatures have been detected throughout the settlement, concentrated around Dr. Taylor's laboratory and the director's office. These could be surveillance technology, or worse, or it could be their natural communication. Susan countered. The Lirani are telepathic. They emit energy fields when communicating. Telepathic, someone repeated with clear alarm. They can read our minds. Not exactly, Susan tried to explain. They can sense emotions, sometimes pick up surface thoughts, but they respect mental privacy. The journey to the Lirani underground city felt different this time. Susan noticed as their group moved through the tunnels, she saw details she'd missed before. Ancient carvings decorated some walls, depicting what appeared to be the early history of the Lirani. Small niches held glowing crystals, providing both light and what Susan suspected might be some form of communication network. Olivia walked beside her, eyes wide with wonder. Despite the tension, her scientific curiosity was evident. Whoa, she whispered. Susan, they've been here all along. Right beneath us. Susan nodded, watching the security officers, Johnson and Miller. They moved with military precision, eyes constantly scanning for threats, hands instinctively reaching for weapons that were no longer there. How much farther? Miller asked, his voice echoing slightly in the tunnel. Elder. Vela did not turn around. We approach the outer boundaries of Chrysalis, she communicated. The journey is nearly complete. Soon the tunnel widened, opening into the vast cavern Susan had seen before. The crystal city spread before them. towers reaching toward the distant ceiling buildings connected by graceful bridges. The human visitors stopped in awe. Olivia gasped. Miller swore softly under his breath. Johnson remained silent, but his rigid posture betrayed his shock. Incredible, Olivia breathed. How many live here? 20,000, Elder Vela answered. This is but one of our 3 cities. The Lyrani led them along a wide path that spiraled down to the city proper. Other Lyrani stopped their activities to watch the humans pass. Some projected curiosity, others caution. Susan felt the light touch of many minds against her consciousness, like gentle fingers testing the surface of water. Where is Director Porter? Johnson demanded as they reached the bottom of the path. She awaits at the council chamber, Elder Vela responded. Follow closely. Do not deviate from our path. The central stone building loomed ahead. Unlike Susan's previous visit, the Yar entrance was now guarded by 6 armored Lyrani, their staffs humming with energy. The guards parted silently, allowing the group to enter. The council chamber had changed. The 7 elder Lyrani still sat in their stone chairs, but now the chamber contained additional seating areas had been prepared for the human visitors. Diane Porter stood near the central crystal, deep in conversation with a Lyrani. Susan, recognized as the male council member with facial markings. She appeared unharmed, though tired. Director. Diane looked up as they entered. Relief washed over her face when she saw Susan. Susan. Thank God, she said, stepping forward. Are you all right? Fine, Susan assured her. But what happened? Why did you come here after our conversation? Diane glanced at the Lyrani Council. I wanted to see for myself, she admitted. After you left, I reviewed our sensor data, the energy readings, the anomalies. Everything pointed to the cave system. I thought I could establish direct contact without telling me, Susan asked, hurt evident in her voice. After everything I shared, I was doing my job. Diane defended the settlement needed verification, independent contact. She sighed. I brought security as a precaution, standard protocol. But when we reached what appeared to be the entrance to their city, we were intercepted. The security team refused to surrender their weapons. A female council member communicated, no one enters our sacred city armed. This has been our law for millennia. Susan turned to the Lyrani Council. I apologize for this misunderstanding, she said. Our protocols require security personnel to remain armed when protecting our leaders. We didn't understand the significance. Elder Vela nodded, accepting the explanation. Now we must discuss more important matters. The arrival of your supply ship brings complications. We must establish clear boundaries before more of your kind reach. Nexus. The council chamber fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The Lyrani clearly viewed the incoming ship as a potential threat. The humans needed to ensure their supply line remained intact, may I suggest? Diane began that we draft a preliminary agreement, a recognition of Lyrani sovereignty over their underground territories and limited surface areas in exchange for allowing our settlement to remain and receive necessary supplies. This seems reasonable, Elder Vela agreed. But we require assurances that your kind will not expand beyond agreed boundaries, that your technology will not interfere with our energy systems, that knowledge of our existence will be controlled. We can work with those conditions, Diane said, but I must report your existence to Earth. That cannot be negotiated. Our protocols require disclosure of intelligent species. The council members communicated silently with each other, their expressions unreadable. Finally, Elder Vela spoke. Your ship arrives in 3 weeks. This gives us time to establish terms. Ambassadors from both sides should work together to draft an agreement. Suggest Dr. Taylor serve as our interim ambassador, Diane said. She already understands your culture and has earned your trust, Elder Vela. Nodded. Zara will represent the Lyrani. Together, they have already built the foundation for understanding. Where is Zara? Susan asked, suddenly realizing her friend was absent from these proceedings. She prepares herself, Elder Vela answered. The role of ambassador requires special meditation and preparation. She will join us shortly. The discussion continued for hours as both sides outlined their concerns and priorities. The Lyrani worried about human expansion technology that might interfere with their crystal energy systems and the potential for cultural contamination. The humans needed guarantees of safe passage for their ships, access to surface resources, and protection for their settlement. Susan and Diane worked together, translating human concepts for the Lyrani Council, while Olivia took careful notes. Johnson and Miller remained silent, though. Susan could see their amazement at the advanced civilization they'd discovered as the meeting progressed. Susan noticed a subtle change in the massive crystal behind the council. Its pulsing light shifted, becoming more harmonious. She suspected it somehow reflected the improving relations between their species. A movement at the entrance caught her attention. Zara entered the council chamber, her tall form moving gracefully across the stone floor. She wore formal robes adorned with crystal fragments. Her silver hair was elaborately styled, signifying her new status. Susan felt an unexpected surge of emotion. Seeing her friend, Zara approached, bowing first to the council, then acknowledging the humans with a graceful gesture. She took her place in a seat that had been prepared beside Elder Vela. "I am honored to serve as ambassador to the humans," she communicated. Her gaze met Susan's briefly, a warm connection flowing between them. With both representatives present, the council formalized the arrangement. Zara and Susan would work together over the coming weeks to draft a comprehensive agreement before the ship arrived. They would establish boundaries for both species, define protocols for communication, and create guidelines for knowledge sharing. When the formal proceedings ended, the council dismissed everyone except the newly appointed ambassadors. Zara and Susan remained in the chamber as the others filed out, once alone. Zara moved closer to Susan. "You are well?" she asked, concern evident in her telepathic voice. "The commander did not punish you for our meetings. I'm fine," Susan assured her, a bit overwhelmed by how quickly everything has changed, but relieved too. "No more secrets," she smiled. "The council seems pleased with our appointment. They believe our connection serves both peoples," Zara explained. "The bond we have formed demonstrates coexistence is possible." Susan nodded, thinking about their unlikely friendship, the human scientist and the alien telepath. From different worlds, yet somehow understanding each other. "Is that how you see it?" she asked, a diplomatic bond. Zara's expression softened. "It is more than diplomacy," she admitted. "I have come to value you beyond your role as representative of your species. You are Susan first, human second." The honest admission touched Susan deeply. "I feel the same," she said. "You aren't just the Lyrani ambassador to me. You're Zara, my friend." She hesitated, then added, "Perhaps more than a friend, though I don't have the right words to describe it. Understanding passed between them, transcending the differences in biology and culture." Zara reached out, taking Susan's hand in her six-fingered one. The touch conveyed what words could not, a connection that defied conventional definition. "Have 3 weeks before your ship arrives," Zara said. "We should begin work on the agreement." Susan agreed, though. Part of her wished for more time to explore their personal connection. The fate of two species now rested partly on their shoulders, a responsibility that couldn't be ignored. The days that followed established a new rhythm. Susan divided her time between the human settlement and the Lyrani city. Each morning she met with Diane and the senior staff, briefing them on Lyrani customs, technology, and concerns. Each afternoon she descended to Chrysalis, working with Zara to draft agreement terms. The initial fear and suspicion in the settlement gradually gave way to curiosity and cautious optimism. Commander Lisa Wells remained vigilant, but even she acknowledged the benefits of peaceful relations with such an advanced species. Olivia became Susan's unofficial assistant, documenting Lyrani biology and social structures for the scientific database. Her enthusiasm helped win over other scientists who began developing research proposals that respected Lyrani boundaries while advancing human knowledge.